Wait, HAMNET is Hamlet? Academy Award-winning director Chloe Zhao is back with Hamnet. It's already being called one of the most emotional films of the past few years. It's racking up awards. It's racking up praise. Does it live up to the emotional heights that critics say it does? This piece of historical fiction follows Agnes, played by Jessie Buckley. She's an unbridled woman who has a connection to nature, but she attracts the eye of Will, aka a young William Shakespeare, played by Paul Mescal. Their attraction is instant and their love blossoms. Soon after, they are married with 3 children. While Will goes off to London to write his plays, Agnes takes care of the home and especially the 2 twin babies, one of which is little Hamnet. He's the pride and joy of the family, the dreamer, the one with the sparkle in his eye. But soon tragedy strikes. Young Hamnet falls ill and passes away, tearing the family asunder and driving a wedge between Agnes and Will. Can Agnes ever get over her grief? Can Will muster up this pain and put it into his plays? The ultimate answer about how both can deal with this loss might just rest in one of Shakespeare's most famous works, Hamlet. We haven't seen director Chloe Zhao in quite a minute. Her last film was the Marvel flop The Eternals. And while it had some of her sensibility, her love for the natural world, and her curiosity of people in it, Marvel, and mainstream Hollywood for that matter, was just not the right fit for her. Hamnet displays Zhao's empathy and compassion. As her emotional anchors, Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal have very difficult jobs here. Mescal with William Shakespeare, who we think we know, and Buckley with Agnes, who there is very little historical record for. But when you have 2 exceptional actors like this, well, they can pretty much tackle anything. And Zhao keeps them very natural and balanced for the most part. That is until the emotions rear their head. And that's where Buckley has to do the heavy lifting. She is the emotional force of this movie. She has to feel all the pain and the anguish, literally, when she's in childbirth. And especially in the film's most harrowing scene, she's trying to save her son's life. For Mescal, this is more in line with who he is as a performer. He can play the coiled up, emotionally restrained guy. And between those 2 valences, they complement each other well. But the funny thing about Paul Mescal's Shakespeare is the film almost withholds him. It knows that Shakespeare is such a legend and wants to focus so much on Agnes that it puts Will in the background. So while we understand Shakespeare as a historical figure, as Will, we don't quite understand the character as much. This is adapted from the Maggie O'Farrell novel, and historical fiction is always tricky. Because we have such a preconceived idea of Shakespeare and who he was, this film tries to fill in the gaps and give more backstory and more agency to his wife. This is ultimately Buckley's film. Structurally, this is a film of 2 halves. The first half with the love story and family, and the second half with the fallout after the loss. In the middle is Hamnet's death, except it's not quite bifurcated equally. Hamnet's death occurs over halfway into the film, so after that, we're scrambling to get to the end. It feels a little like Zhao is now rushing the important groundwork, almost as if the film has been edited too much, it's been truncated, so there's not enough runway to lead us where we need to be when the time for the biggest impact comes. And look, people in my theater were sobbing. It's definitely an emotional conclusion. But this is a case of where I see what the filmmaker is going for, and yet I'm not quite sure she achieved it. And a lot of the emotional heavy lifting comes from composer Max Richter. Not just his film score though, his famous piece On the Nature of Daylight, which is used as the final song at the end. Now if you're like me, you know that song specifically from the 2016 film Arrival, where it's used brilliantly at the beginning, at the end, to complete that film's circular structure. Here it's almost too distracting when it shows up, because it just recalls a better emotional experience I had with another film. And it's a big misstep, because you have the literal composer there, Max Richter. He's doing the score. Why not just have him compose a new piece? And to be honest, this film just made me think of other on-screen period romances that affected me more deeply, especially Terrence Malick's The New World, but most importantly, Jane Campion's Bright Star. Bright Star followed Fanny Braun and her relationship with poet John Keats, and it did so in a beautiful and dreamy and haunting and, yes, poetic way that dealt with similar themes of family and eventually loss. Unlike Hamnet, Bright Star is a film that asks the audience to come to it for its emotional catharsis, whereas Hamnet really pushes you at the end to get to an emotional place. That's not to say that this film isn't an achievement. It just unfortunately doesn't reach the heights that I could see it was capable of. It'll most likely work for many, many viewers. But unfortunately for me, it was just shy of greatness. Hamnet is undoubtedly an emotional experience anchored by two superb performances from Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal. Unfortunately, emotional manipulation and some structural missteps prevent it from reaching its full potential. I respect it, but I don't love it. So I give it a respectable 3.5 stars out of 5. If you like this review, please like and subscribe or follow me on Letterboxd at RamirezS316. This is basically hot Shakespeare and his hot wife. So Zhao, would it kill you to have a little less crying and a little more moaning?